The crystal wine glasses clinked around the table as my family toasted my birthday. Not to celebrate me, no. They were toasting to my dedication as the family's personal assistant. My own husband led the mockery, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed disdain. I'm Brinley, and this is the story of how I destroyed my family. Another refill, sis? Hannah waved her empty glass at me, not even bothering to look up from her phone, since you're already up and serving anyway. I wasn't up. I was sitting right next to her, picking at my untouched salmon. But I rose anyway, like I always did, and reached for her glass. Oh, and while you're at it, my mother Amelia chimed in, be a dear and fetch those appetizer plates from the kitchen. Can't have them cluttering the table during the main course. Miles smirked. That's my girl, always taking care of everyone. 7-year-old Violet, my niece, watched me with concerned eyes as I gathered dishes. She was the only pure thing left in this family. I can help, Aunt Brenly, she offered quietly. Violet, sit down, Hannah snapped. That's what Aunt Brinley is for. She's basically the nanny now. Laughter erupted around the table. I kept my face carefully blank as I carried the dishes to the kitchen, my purse clutched tight against my hip. Inside was an envelope that would change everything. Remember when she used to run that little business of hers? I heard my mother say. Thank goodness Miles talked some sense into her about that silly venture. Best decision ever, Miles agreed. She's much more useful taking care of the family's needs. My little business had been a successful marketing consultancy that generated 6 figures annually, until Miles convinced me to let him invest my profits into family opportunities. Funny how those opportunities always seem to benefit everyone but me. I returned with Hannah's wine and fresh plates, catching the tail end of their conversation about my spending habits. And then she wanted to use her inheritance to start another business. Can you imagine? When we needed that money for Mom's medical bills? Medical bills, right. The same medical bills I'd found shredded in Miles's office, never actually paid, while my inheritance vanished into offshore accounts. Speaking of money, Miles turned to me. Honey, we need to discuss the household budget. Your shopping's getting out of hand again. I hadn't bought anything but groceries in months, but I nodded like always. Of course, whatever you think is best. That's why we love you, Brinley. My mother reached over to pat my hand condescendingly. Always so agreeable. Remember when she tried to argue about the house deed? Hannah giggled, as if she understood anything about property law. I understood enough to know that forging my signature was illegal. The documentation was in my purse, along with so much more. To Brinley, Miles raised his glass again, the perfect wife who keeps our lives running smoothly. They all lifted their glasses, even James, Hannah's quiet husband who rarely participated in their games. Only Violet kept her hands in her lap, her young face troubled. Thank you all for coming to my birthday dinner, I said softly, reaching for my purse. I've been collecting memories of moments like these, stories about our family. Oh God, she's not going to get emotional, is she? Hannah rolled her eyes. Now, my mother soothed. You know how sensitive she can be. I pulled out my phone and pressed record, placing it casually on the table. Then I reached for the envelope in my purse. Actually, I have a story to share about inheritance fraud, identity theft, and federal tax evasion. Would anyone like to hear it? The laughter died. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me in confusion. Only Violet smiled, as if she'd been waiting for this moment as long as I had. Honey, Miles started, his charm sliding into place like a mask. Maybe we should discuss this in private. Oh no, I interrupted, my voice steady for the first time in years. I think it's time we discussed everything as a family. After all, isn't that what you always taught me? Family comes first. I began distributing envelopes around the table, saving my mother's for last. My hands didn't shake at all. Happy birthday to me. What is this? Miles's voice cracked as he stared at the papers in his hands. I watched his face change as he flipped through the pages. Confusion, then anger, then fear. The memory of how it all started flooded back. 6 months ago, I'd been cleaning his home office when I found the first document, a transfer receipt for my inheritance money, my signature forged at the bottom. Brinley, my mother's sharp voice cut through the silence. What have you done? Nothing yet, I replied calmly, just gathered evidence of what you've all done. Hannah was frantically scanning her envelope. These are lies. You've always been jealous of me, haven't you? Ever since Dad left me his watch collection? Dad left those watches to me, just like he left me the house you're living in. Check page 4 of your packet. There's a copy of his original will. The color drained from Hannah's face. Beside her, James finally looked interested, peering over her shoulder at the documents. Sweetheart, Miles tried again, reaching for my hand across the table. You never cared about money. Remember what we talked about? How you wanted to focus on family? I remember everything, Miles, including the day you convinced me to close my business. What was it you said? You're working too hard, baby. Let me handle the finances. I was protecting you. By stealing from me? I pushed a bank statement toward him. $300,000 transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands. My signature forged on every document. My mother stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm calling Trinity. Your lawyer? I smiled. She's probably busy right now. The FBI tends to ask a lot of questions about money laundering. The wine glass slipped from Hannah's hand, shattering on the floor. Violet jumped at the sound, and I instinctively reached for her. Don't touch my daughter, Hannah shrieked, pulling Violet away. Like you touched my inheritance? Or my identity? Because I have proof you've been using my social security number for years. Tax fraud is a federal crime. You're bluffing, my mother said, but her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. I recorded everything, every conversation where you planned it all. Like last month, when you told Hannah I was only useful if I stayed in the dark. Remember that, Mom? I never, she started. Check your envelope. There's a transcript, and an audio file has already been sent to the authorities. Miles stood up, his charm replaced by fury. You stupid bitch. You really think anyone will believe you? You can barely manage a checkbook without me. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway, she managed quite well to document everything. Kimberly, my best friend and lawyer, walked into the dining room. The family stared at her in shock. The authorities have been very interested in Mrs. Shaw's evidence, Kimberly continued professionally, especially the offshore accounts, Miles. Did you really think nobody would notice? Get out of my house, my mother demanded. Your house? I laughed for the first time in years. Check the deed, Mom. Dad left it to me, remember? The same deed Miles forged to put in your name? That's fraud, too. Violet suddenly broke free from Hannah's grip and ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. I knew you weren't stupid, Aunt Brenly, she whispered. Hannah lunged forward. Violet, come here right now. Mrs. Bailey, Kimberly interrupted smoothly, I wouldn't make any sudden moves. Child Protective Services is very interested in how you've been using your daughter's trust fund. The room exploded into chaos. My mother was screaming into her phone, Hannah was crying, and Miles was threatening legal action. But I felt strangely calm, like I was watching it all from a distance. You'll regret this, Miles hissed at me. You're nothing without this family. I picked up my purse and took Violet's small hand. No, Miles, I was nothing with this family, but not anymore. As Kimberly and I led Violet from the dining room, I heard James say quietly, She played us all. Yes, I had. And this was just the beginning. I looked down at Violet's trusting face and squeezed her hand. Want to help me pack some things before the police arrive? She nodded solemnly. Behind us, the sound of my family's world crumbling was the sweetest birthday music I'd ever heard. The next morning, I met Kimberly at her office downtown. Police cars had been at my mother's house until midnight, and my phone hadn't stopped buzzing with threats and accusations since I had left. They've frozen all the accounts, Kimberly said, sliding a coffee across her desk to me. Miles is trying to access your joint accounts, but we beat him to it.
How much did they take? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Nearly everything. But we have the paper trail now. She pulled out a thick folder. The investigator found something interesting in your mother's safety deposit box. Inside the folder were photographs of ledgers, pages and pages of transactions, all in my mother's precise handwriting. Each entry showed money moving through accounts in my name that I'd never known existed. Your mother and sister were using your identity to hide money from their own divorces. Hannah never told James about the millions she got from her first marriage. A knock at the door interrupted us. Detective Rivera entered, looking grim. Mrs. Shaw, he nodded to me. We've got a problem. Trinity Brooks just filed an emergency injunction claiming attorney-client privilege on all your mother's documents. That won't work, Kimberly said firmly. Those documents show criminal conspiracy. The privilege doesn't apply. My phone buzzed again. Hannah, Violet won't stop crying. This is your fault. I showed it to Detective Rivera. Add it to the harassment file. Speaking of Violet, Kimberly said softly, the trust fund investigation isn't looking good for Hannah. The account's been drained. My heart clenched. How much was in it? $500,000. Your father set it up before he died. Another knock. This time it was James, looking exhausted and angry. Is it true? About Hannah's first marriage, the hidden money? I nodded. He collapsed into a chair, running his hands through his hair. Violet's college fund. Hannah told me it was tied up in investments. It was, in her secret Cayman account. James looked up, his eyes red. She's at your mother's house now with Trinity. They're shredding everything they can find. Detective Rivera was already on his phone, calling for a warrant. Kimberly started gathering papers. We need to move fast. Brenly, are you sure about pressing charges against them all? Once this starts... They stole my life, I cut her off. My business, my inheritance, my identity. They made me their servant while they spent my money. Aunt Brenly? We all turned. Violet stood in the doorway, clutching her backpack. Behind her, the receptionist looked apologetic. She insisted on seeing you, said it was an emergency. I knelt in front of my niece. How did you get here, sweetheart? I took an Uber with Dad's phone. She glanced at James. Mom's saying bad things about you. She said they're going to put you in jail instead. James made a strangled sound. Violet, you can't take Ubers alone. I had to, tears spilled down her cheeks. They're being mean to Aunt Brenly again, and she's the only one who ever listens to me. Detective Rivera cleared his throat. Miss, did you hear your mom and grandma talking about documents? Violet nodded solemnly. They're burning stuff in the fireplace, and Grandma keeps yelling at someone named Trinity about fixing it. The detective was already moving. That's probable cause. I'm getting that warrant now. I'll go with you, James said, standing. Violet, come on. No, she grabbed my hand. I want to stay with Aunt Brenly. Kimberly intervened smoothly. Mr. Bailey, given the circumstances, perhaps Violet should stay here while we sort this out. We need to document everything she's witnessed anyway. James hesitated, then nodded. Keep her safe. I'll deal with Hannah. After they left, Violet crawled into my lap, something she hadn't done since she was tiny. Are they going to jail? She whispered. I stroked her hair, remembering all the times I'd comforted her while Hannah was too busy to mother her own child. I don't know, sweetie, but they can't hurt us anymore. Promise? Promise. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Miles. Baby, please, we can fix this. Remember how good we were together? Like when? You forged my signature to steal my inheritance?
I did that for us. You were too emotional about money. Someone had to take control. I hit record on my phone, just like Kimberly had taught me. So you admit to forging my signature. Silence. Then, you're recording this, aren't you, you sneaky bitch? Goodbye, Miles.
You were nothing. A convenient scapegoat, just like the others. The others. It clicked. How many families have you done this to, Trinity? She smiled, blood from her cut hand staining her teeth red. Enough to retire on. Your mother was just the latest client, so easy to manipulate, so eager to steal from her own daughter. And Hannah? Was sleeping with my husband part of the plan too? Oh, honey. Trinity stood, smoothing her skirt. That was just for fun. Hannah always wanted what was yours. We just helped her take it. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Trinity's face contorted. You wore a wire. Of course I did. Did you really think I'd still be the naive little victim? She lunged for her purse, pulling out a gun. My heart stopped. Delete the recording now, she snarled. It's too late, I said as police burst through the door. Everything you just said was transmitted live to the police. Trinity spun toward the officers, gun raised. Detective Rivera tackled her as the weapon discharged, the bullet splintering my kitchen cabinet. As they handcuffed her, Trinity started laughing. Your mother will never forgive you for this. None of them will. I don't need their forgiveness. I need justice. My phone buzzed with a text from Kimberly. Miles just tried to empty your accounts. Bank cut him. He's being arrested now. Another text followed. Hannah is being questioned about the other families Trinity mentioned. She's cracking. I watched the police lead Trinity away, her threats echoing through my house. Detective Rivera touched my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, looking around my kitchen, the home Miles and I had shared, where I'd played happy housewife while they all stole my life piece by piece. I'm selling this place, I decided. Time for a fresh start. After the trial, he reminded me, you're our star witness now. I smiled, thinking of Trinity's confession, of all the evidence we'd gathered. Don't worry, detective, I've got plenty more stories to tell. The courthouse buzzed with tension as I took the witness stand. 3 months had passed since Trinity's arrest, and now I faced my family in court. My mother sat rigid in her designer suit, Hannah beside her with red-rimmed eyes. Miles, separated from them by his lawyer, wouldn't meet my gaze. Please state your name for the record, the prosecutor began. Brinley Shaw. Mrs. Shaw, can you identify the defendants? I pointed to each of them. Amelia Brooks, my mother, Hannah Bailey, my sister, Miles Shaw, my soon-to-be ex-husband, and Trinity Brooks, my mother's lawyer. Tell us how this began. I took a deep breath. It started with my father's death. He left me his business, the house, and a substantial inheritance. Objection. Trinity's lawyer stood. This is hearsay. Overruled, the judge said. Continue, Mrs. Shaw. I described finding the forged documents, the drained accounts, the systematic theft of my identity. With each revelation, the jury leaned forward, their faces darkening. And how did your family explain these transactions? They told me I was too emotional about money, too unstable to manage my own affairs. I met my mother's eyes. They said they were protecting me. While they stole millions from you? Yes. Trinity's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, my client was merely providing legal services. Legal services? Like helping them create fake passports? Or coaching them on how to frame me if they got caught? The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel as Trinity's face went pale. Mrs. Shaw, the prosecutor held up Trinity's red notebook. Please read this entry from May 15th. I read aloud. Amelia confirms transfer of daughter's inheritance complete. Standard procedure. Forge signatures, establish offshore accounts, prepare mental instability narrative as backup. Client 7 of 9 this year. Gasps from the jury. Hannah started crying. And this recording, the prosecutor played Trinity's confession from my kitchen. Her voice filled the courtroom. I built this. Your pathetic family would be nothing without me. During the cross-examination, Trinity's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, manipulative, vengeful, but the evidence was overwhelming. One final question, the prosecutor said. What happened to the other families Trinity mentioned? I said, the FBI found them. 8 other families, all with the same pattern. A vulnerable relative, stolen inheritance, forged documents. Trinity and my mother had it down to a science. My mother finally cracked. She deserved it, she screamed, jumping up. She was always his favorite. He left everything to her. Order. The judge's gavel crashed down. Because I worked for it. I shot back. I built that business while you and Hannah spent his money. I took care of him when he was dying while you were on vacation. Enough. The judge's voice cut through the chaos. Remove Mrs. Brooks from my courtroom. As they led my mother away, still screaming, Miles caught my eye. For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, before greed and manipulation had revealed his true nature. The prosecution rests, Your Honor. Outside the courtroom, Kimberly waited with Violet. James had gotten full custody after Hannah's arrest, and he'd been letting Violet visit me regularly. Did you tell them everything? Violet asked, hugging me. Everything, I promised. Good. She looked older somehow, wiser. They can't hurt anyone else now. Kimberly touched my arm. The jury won't be out long, not with that evidence. I know. I watched Trinity and my mother being led away in handcuffs, Hannah sobbing as she followed her lawyer, Miles staring blankly ahead as his world crumbled. What happens now? Violet asked. Now, I smiled down at her. Now, we start over. Together. My phone buzzed. Detective Rivera. 2 more families have come forward. Trinity's network is bigger than we thought. I showed Kimberly the message. Think we can help them too? Already working on it. Your testimony opened the floodgates. Trinity's empire is falling apart. Violet slipped her hand into mine as we walked out of the courthouse. Reporters called my name, cameras flashing, but I kept walking. Aunt Brinley, Violet said quietly, I'm proud of you. Tears pricked my eyes. All the pain, all the betrayal had led to this moment. My family had tried to destroy me, but instead they'd made me stronger. I'm proud of us, I told her, squeezing her hand. Behind us, the courthouse doors closed on my old life. Ahead lay something new, something honest and real. It was time to start living again. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach their verdict. I sat between Kimberly and James as the defendants were led back into the courtroom. Violet squeezed my hand from her seat behind me. Will the defendants please rise? The judge instructed.
They stood, my mother, still trying to look dignified despite her orange jumpsuit. Hannah, mascara streaked down her face, Miles, his charm replaced by defeat, and Trinity, cold and calculating to the end. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find? Guilty, the forewoman announced. On the count of identity theft? Guilty. On the count of money laundering? Guilty. The verdicts continued. Tax evasion, forgery, criminal conspiracy. Guilty on all counts. My mother swayed on her feet. Hannah collapsed into her chair. Before sentencing, the judge said, would any of the defendants like to address the court? Trinity stood first. Your Honor, I maintain my innocence. These charges are— Save it, the judge cut her off. The evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Brooks? My mother turned to face me, her mask finally cracking. Brinley, please, I'm your mother. You stopped being my mother the day you chose money over me. Hannah jumped up. It wasn't like that. We were just trying to— Miss Bailey, the judge warned, sit down or be removed. Miles was last. Baby, I loved you. Everything I did was for us. No, I replied calmly. Everything you did was for yourself. The judge cleared his throat. Given the severity of these crimes and their impact on multiple families, I sentenced the defendants as follows. Trinity, 15 years. My mother, 12 years. Hannah, 8 years. Miles, 10 years. Plus restitution, fines, and asset forfeiture. The courtroom erupted. My mother screamed. Hannah collapsed into her chair. Trinity's lawyer was already shouting about appeals. But I just sat there, feeling oddly empty. Years of manipulation and abuse reduced to numbers and legal terms. Aunt Brinley? Violet's voice broke through my thoughts. Are they really going to jail? Yes, sweetheart. They can't hurt anyone anymore. Detective Rivera approached with a thick folder. We found more victims, 20 families over the past decade. Trinity and your mother had quite the operation. How much did they steal? James asked. Close to 50 million total. We're working on recovery now. Kimberly touched my arm. Ready to go? The press is waiting outside. I nodded, gathering my things. As we stood, Hannah's voice rang out. Violet, baby, please, don't let them take Mommy away.
Violet buried her face in my side. James stepped between them. Enough, Hannah. You lost the right to call yourself her mother. As they led the defendants away, my mother tried one last time. Brinley, I raised you better than this. I turned to face her. No, Mom. You raised me to be weak, to serve, to accept abuse. I raised myself to be strong. The bailiffs escorted them out. Trinity was last, pausing at the door. You think this is over? She hissed. I still have friends, connections. So do I, and mine aren't in prison. Outside, reporters swarmed us. Mrs. Shaw, how does it feel to take down your own family? They stopped being family when they chose greed over love, I said clearly. This case wasn't just about me, it was about every family they destroyed, every life they ruined. What's next for you? I smiled, hugging Violet close. Healing and helping other victims recover what was stolen from them. Kimberly stepped forward. My firm is establishing a foundation to help victims of familial fraud. Mrs. Shaw will be heading it. Later at the celebration dinner, James raised his glass. To justice. To family. Real family. To starting over, I said. My phone buzzed. A message from Detective Rivera. Trinity's friends are singing to the feds. This goes higher than we thought. Need your help. I showed Kimberly the message. She nodded. Ready for round 2? Always. I looked around the table at my new family. Kimberly, who stood by me, James, who chose truth over loyalty, and Violet, who loved me when I couldn't love myself. But first, I said, let's enjoy this moment. We earned it. Violet grinned. Does this mean I can call you Mom now? James choked on his drink. Kimberly laughed, and I felt tears spring to my eyes. Happy tears, for the first time in years. Let's start with Aunt Brinley, I said, hugging her close, and see where life takes us. The moving truck pulled away from my mother's house, my house now, for the last time. I donated most of the furniture to domestic violence shelters and sold the rest. The proceeds would go to the Victims Foundation. Last box, James said, carrying a photo album to my car. You're sure you want to keep these? I replied, they're evidence of who they really were. I need to remember. My phone rang, a collect call from the prison. I almost declined it, but something made me answer it. Brinley? Hannah's voice was small, broken. I need to tell you something. I'm listening. Mom and Trinity, they did it to Dad too, before he died. They stole from his company, forged documents. That's why he changed his will in the end, left everything to you. He knew you were the only honest one. The truth hit like a physical blow. Why are you telling me this now? Because I found his letter. The real one, not the fake one Mom showed us. I'm having my lawyer send it to you. She paused. I'm sorry, Brinley, for everything. I hung up without responding. Violet ran out of the house carrying her favorite teddy bear. Found him, she announced. He was hiding in the attic. Like all the other secrets in this house, I muttered. Kimberly pulled up in her car, waving a folder. You need to see this. Trinity's network, it goes all the way to the state attorney's office. They're launching a federal investigation. Good. I handed her the house keys. Listed for sale. I don't want anything to do with this place anymore. Already have a buyer, she smiled. Another domestic violence shelter. They're converting it into a safe house. Perfect justice. The house where I'd been trapped would become a refuge for others escaping abuse. My phone buzzed again. Detective Rivera. Your mother wants to make a deal. Full confession, names. Says she'll only talk to you. No, I texted back. She had her chance. James touched my shoulder. You okay? Getting there. I looked at the house one last time. You know what the worst part was? They really thought they were helping me, protecting me. They convinced themselves their abuse was love. That's what abusers do, Kimberly said softly. Violet hugged my waist. Can we go home now? Home. My new apartment, bought with recovered funds. Small, but mine. Really mine. Yes, sweetie. Let's go home. Wait, James said. There's something I need to ask you. He pulled out custody papers. Violet needs a legal guardian if anything happens to me. Would you? Yes, I said immediately. Of course, yes. Violet squealed and jumped into my arms. Best aunt ever! Best niece ever, I whispered back.
As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house grew smaller, taking its ghosts with it. But the lessons remained. Trust must be earned, love shouldn't hurt, and sometimes family is who you choose. My phone lit up with a news alert. State attorney resigns amid fraud investigation. Trinity's network was crumbling, dominoes falling one by one. Aunt Brinley? Violet asked from the back seat. Are you still going to help other people like you? That's the plan. The foundation opens next week. Can I help? I'm good at spotting lies now. I caught James's eye in the mirror. He nodded slightly. Yes, I told her. You can help. We all can. At my apartment, a package waited by the door. Inside was my father's real letter, written days before his death. I read it aloud. My dearest Brinley, I know what they've done. I know what they're capable of. That's why I left everything to you, not because you're the favorite, but because you're the strongest, the most honest, the most like me. Don't let them break you. Don't let them win. I love you, always. Dad. Violet wrapped her arms around me as I cried, not from sadness, but from vindication, from knowing my father had seen the truth, had tried to protect me in his own way. He was right, Kimberly said. You are the strongest. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Miles. I never deserved you. I deleted it without responding. He was right. None of them deserved me. But I deserved better, and I'd finally claimed it. Who wants pizza? I asked, wiping my eyes. With pineapple? Violet grinned. Absolutely not, James groaned. Definitely with pineapple, I laughed. And just like that, we were family. Real family. The kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. The kind that loves without conditions, supports without schemes, and heals instead of hurts. I was finally home.